of the 2007 Wild Card Playoff Series. Little technical difficulties today trying to get this set up on a new computer, but hopefully we're good to go from this point on. If anybody notices any technical difficulties as the stream is running, please mention something in the Slack chat and we'll try to get that fixed for the next round. But we're going to have real-time sim going here as well, so hopefully between real-time sim and the stream, people will get the results they need. So, off here for the playoffs. I'm not going to be announcing everything this year. Again, I'm on vacation, so I'm not looking to be tied down to this. But at the same time, I want to give a little preview of our playoff teams here for the wild card round. Our first matchup, we have the Galveston Gremlins going against the Montreal Machine. They played 6 times this year and split 3-3. Of course, Galveston is the wild card in the Ice Conference, one of the wild cards in the Ice Conferences. And they had a pretty average offense this year, it looks like, in runs scored, and then a pretty strong pitching staff, so that's kind of what has led them here to the playoffs. Meanwhile, Montreal, on the other hand, had a kind of average year. They pretty much held down second place the entire year, with Baltimore getting close, but not really making it to. Let's see if I can fix the sound here. Not really making it to the any threat for winning the Sapphire Division and held Steve at bay. So holding the 2 seed here, they're going to host the Gremlins. So we'll see how the series here between Matt and Tim plays out. Up next, we have the new Washington Generals. Steve with his first playoff appearance in the 7 years of our league's existence. So congratulations, Steve, for being here. Carried by his offense this year, second in the Ice Conference in runs, 900 runs scored. Again, a pretty average pitching staff, but he definitely improved his pitching staff on previous years. And that made all the difference this year. 93 wins for the Washington Generals, and they are going to be hosted by the Fort Collins Roosters. So after a couple years out of the playoffs, Kyle finds himself back here. Again, he had a dominant pitching staff this year, only gave up 661 runs, and that was first in the Ice Conference, and then again, a pretty average offense. So this is going to be a good offense versus defensive matchup here for these two teams. It looks like Kyle and Fort Collins did dominate the small season series 5-1, 6-game series. So again, we'll see how this one plays out. Next, we have Louisville and our reigning champions, Chuck, going to Huron to face the Herons. Looking at Michael's team, really, again, a dominant pitching staff here in the Fire Conference, second in runs allowed, and just slightly above average in runs scored, going against a below average offense in the Louisville Rivermen, but again, another good pitching staff. So this will be a series between two strong pitching staffs, and we'll see if either offense can wake up and advance these teams. And then finally, we have the Milwaukee Mobsters in their first year of existence, moving from Indianapolis, and Bob, and this is their first time as a franchise being in the postseason. So again, they had a pretty below average offense, 10th out of 14th in runs scored, and only 5th out of 14th in runs against. But as we remember here, they started really poorly. What was it, like 5-19, something horrible, and then got super hot, won 17 straight games midseason, and kind of just coasted to the playoffs from there. Although Bob would probably disagree with that. He felt pretty stressed there in the last sim. But anyways, Bob's in. And next, and he's going to be hosted by the San Diego Seals. Alex's team this year was the best team in the Fire Conference in terms of runs scored. I think he mentioned in the chat he had 3 100 RBI players on his roster this year, which is pretty amazing. And then runs against, he was just above average here. He was 6th with 730 runs against. So should be a pretty interesting matchup as these two teams also split the season series. And just to go back actually here, even Louisville and Huron split the season series. So of these 3 of the 4 matchups, most of them split the season series. The only one that was a little different with results was the Washington Fort Collins matchup. So without further ado, we will get the playoffs underway here. And I didn't set the playoff times, so give me a second. You'll have to bear with me on that. Alrighty, and here we go. Good luck to our playoff teams. You know what? Fuck it. I got some free time, so I'm going to call the games for a minute. So Fred Cox leads things off for the Generals, 1-0, driving in Zachary Fast, and then a two-run homer by Jason Kohler, the walk king, puts Washington up 3-0 early in this game. Fort Collins bases loaded, bottom of the first, 2 outs, but the Generals get out of it. So score 3-0 going to the second. And if you guys can hear me clearly, just say something in chat real quick. I just want to make sure the stream is working. Jorge Cotto singles, driving in Cruz. So Montreal first on the board here in the bottom of the second. 2 on, nobody out, and they're threatening for more. Washington adds 2 more on a Zachary Fast triple, driving in McKenzie and Newton. So that is a 5-0 lead for Washington already, and it looks like a record was set in that game. We'll have to check that out after the game here. Washington adds 2 more, and the route is on. Jason Kohler, happy to be in the postseason with his second home run of the game, makes it 7-0, and then an Albert Pregine home run makes it 8-0 in the second inning. The Generals are all over the Roosters right now. So it looks like that 5-1 season series lead for Fort Collins is out the window now that we're here in the playoffs. Anybody can take this. Meanwhile, Milwaukee, the Mobsters in their first playoff game ever, are on the board as Jetcha singles and drives in Leighton. And now Huron's on the board. Steve Cole doubles, driving in Carter. So 1-0 in that game in the third. San Diego ties it up with a Corey Henderson double. It's going to bring in Ganoza. It's 1-1 in the third. And Todd Vela is going to double to drive in Henderson. So that makes it 2-1 as San Diego adds another to take the lead. Neil Leighton singles. He's going to drive in O'Dwyer, and that ties it up for Milwaukee 2-2 in the top of the fourth. Judah Walker doubles for the Louisville Rivermen. That's going to drive in Dave's a 1-1 game now in the fifth. George Reed struck out 9 through 5 innings, so he is dealing right now for the Herons. Tyler Hill hitting a solo home run for Fort Collins, getting them on the board here in the playoffs. 8-1. They got a long ways to go if they're going to get back into game one, but at least they're getting the offense rolling a little bit here. Bases loaded, 1 out for Fort Collins, trying to get back into it here if they can get a big swing. Meanwhile, Angel Morales is leaving the games with an injury for Washington. We'll check that out after the game when we look at the record. Sun Hyun Park hits a solo homer. That's going to give Louisville the 2-1 lead in the sixth. Park had a huge postseason last year, and he's started off strong here with a home run. George Reed now 11 strikeouts through 6, but he is behind. Meanwhile, Rodolfo Torres walks. He's going to drive in Walters. So Fort Collins gets one more, but still down 8-2 in the fifth. Meanwhile, Montreal adding another. Jorge Cotto singles his second base hit of the game to drive in a run. And that's going to be followed by a Jason Hymas triple. So Cotto and Sullivan score, and Montreal's at 4-0 here in the sixth. Second and third, 1 out now for Hurons. Bases loaded, 1 out. And they tie it up on a Brian Gregory sac fly. It's going to bring in Rodriguez, so 2-2 now. Milwaukee taking the lead here in the seventh. Tony Aponte hits a sac fly to Driven Hernandez, so 3-2. Meanwhile, Jeff Brown singles to get the Gremlins on the board here in the 2007 playoffs, and they're down 4-1 now as they chip one away from the machine. Meanwhile, Victor Nieto with a solo homer. That's gonna give Louisville the 3-2 lead here. Looks like also Galveston's driving in a second run with Chris Jackson groundout, so they cut the lead in half. It's now 4-2. Meanwhile, Fort Collins adds another run. Still down 8-3 in that game though, as Justin Walters triples. Vinny Penelver singles, driving in Paul Tizard, and that's going to give Montreal an insurance run. Now up 5-2 in the seventh. 2-1, nobody out for Louisville, threatening here in the top of the eighth to add some insurance. Top of the ninth now in the Milwaukee-San Diego game. Milwaukee hanging to a 3-2 lead. Last chance to add some insurance. San Diego's postseason struggles continue. I think they're 1-8 lifetime in the postseason, so definitely not looking to lose game one here, but still 3 outs remaining. Meanwhile, Fort Collins continues to chip away at Washington now. In the seventh, it is 8-5 as Juan Cuevas drives in two with a single. So an 8-0 game now, 8-5 with a couple innings left. Bottom of the ninth now, 2 outs left for San Diego. Can't get the offense going this game. 2 down. Single for Heine keeps them alive. It's going to bring up Marks. Meanwhile, Huron's got 2 on with 2 out, down by 1 in the bottom of the eighth. And that's a final in San Diego. Milwaukee takes game one, 3-2 over the Seals. And we have a final in Montreal as well as they take a 5-2 win over the Gremlins for a 1-0 series lead. Meanwhile, Bobby Barton leaves the game with an injury for Milwaukee. Billy Torgensen singles, drives in another for Fort Collins, so we are in the eighth now, but it is a two-run game. They've come all the way back to make this competitive. We're on to the bottom of the ninth in Huron. Down by one. They're going to need some magic here late. And they get it. Steve Cole with a solo home run, his fourth hit of the game, ties it up here 3-3 in the bottom of the ninth. We go to the 10th now in Huron. Meanwhile, second and third with one out for Fort Collins, trying to tie this game up. And they do! Jamie Lindahl doubles, driving in Egan and Lacey, and it is 8-8 in the bottom of the eighth. Fort Collins erases an 8-run deficit here in game one to tie this thing up. And they're still starting 2 on, 2 out in the bottom of the eighth here. Meanwhile, base runner on for Louisville here in the top of the 10th with one down. Washington gets out of it, but it's tied going to the ninth. Let's see if they can get a run here. Jason Kohler coming to the plate, 3 for 3 with 2 home runs already. 2 on, 2 out, and the Herons get out of the inning. So going to the bottom of the 10th in that game. Man on second for the Generals, but they can't get it across. We're going to the bottom of the ninth now for Fort Collins, tied 8-8. Bobby Roberts leaves the game with an injury for Washington, so another injury. Let's see what. We'll check those out after the game. Huron walks it off with a Steve Cole single, his fifth hit of the game. So he ties it in the ninth, wins it in the 10th. What a game for Steve Cole. 5 hits, and that's probably a record there. It looks like a record for the Herons. I'm going to guess it's hits in a game, postseason game. So Huron takes game one with a comeback victory late. Meanwhile, top of the 10th, Washington still tied 8-8. Nothing going for them in the top half. We'll bring up Fort Collins in the bottom half of the inning. And that's it. Fort Collins completes the improbable comeback here in game one with 10 unanswered runs. They win it in the 10th, 10-8 on a 2-run homer by Tyler Hill, his second home run of the game. So Fort Collins survives game one, or actually comes back in game one after being what looked like completely out of it. And that was some pretty exciting endings there for game one. So if that's a preview of what the playoffs are going to be like, we're in for a treat. But let's go on to game two here. Yeah, that had to be the biggest comeback in TBL postseason history. I don't think we've had any bigger comebacks. I know we weren't announcing the games early on, but I don't remember anything like that happening. It's on brand with Steve's team so far, unfortunately. Just very unlucky at times. But a lot of series left, Steve. Bases loaded, 2 out for the Seals in the first. They get a big hit by Glenn Marks. He singles and he drives in Bryson Green, so that's a 2-0 lead in the bottom of the first for the Seals. Second and third, one out from Milwaukee. And they get one back here. Todd Graham's going to ground out. Jutch is going to score. Meanwhile, Greg Goldstein hits a two-run homer for the Gremlins, giving them a 2-0 lead here in the second inning. Montreal on the board. Jorge Cotto singles, continues to drive in runs for the machine, 2-1. Louisville on the board. Jose Guevara hits a sac fly to drive in Walker, and then Sung Hyung Park hits a single to drive in Garnica. So 2-0. And now a three-run home. Ashburn breaks this game open. In the top of the third, 5-0 Louisville. They lead things. So big inning there for the Rivermen. Ruben Lopez grounds out for the Generals. That's going to put them on the board 1-0. And then a wild pitch is going to score Fred Cox. So 2-0 here in the top of the third, going to the bottom of the third. Omar Gonzalez singles, driving in Squires. So Galveston adds another run, 3-1. Huron's on the board. Jesse Carter's doubling, driving in Vickers. So 5-1, and they trail still. Ryan Mans hits a two-run homer for the Generals. They are now up 4-0, taking an early lead in this game, much like they did last game. Let's see if they can hold on in game two. And two more runs. Ruben Lopez singles, driving in Newton and Cox. So 6-0 Washington in the fourth inning. First and third, nobody out for four Collins. Are they driving a run? Mike McGoldrick singles, so 6-1. Still first and third. Young Hung Park, the Korean Kong, hits a solo home run, extending Louisville's lead to 6-1. And Montreal ties the game on a Tom Larson triple. Cotto and Hymas are going to score. That's going to make it 3-3 in Montreal here in the fifth. And they take the lead on a Paul Tizzard double. So 4-3. Meanwhile, Danny Marshburn hits his second home run of the game, giving the Rivermen a 7-1 lead here. Paul Tizzard doubles for. Oh, I already got that. Yep. Ryan Mans hits a solo homer. That's his second home run of the game. So Washington extending their lead to 7-1. Had a bunch of multi-home run games here in games one and two. I think it's the four different players now have done that. Cuevas doubles. Walter scores. It's going to make it 7-2. Fort Collins chips one away. And Huron chips one away. Pat Farrow singles to drive in Carter. So 7-2 in that game as well. First and third, one out for San Diego. And they drive in a runs. Corey Henderson hits a sac fly, so that makes it 3-1. Two on, nobody out for Fort Collins. Two on, one out for Milwaukee. Both trying to get back into these games. Milwaukee can't get it done. We're going to the bottom of the seventh. Neither can Fort Collins. San Diego adds an insurance run. Bill Bryce doubles to drive in Wilson. That makes it 4-1 in the seventh. And a Kyle Lacey solo home run adds a run for Fort Collins, chipping away 7-3 now. And Clark Heine hits a 3-run homer for the Seals, and that's going to give them a pretty safe lead, 7-1 here in the seventh. Dan Dark hits a sac fly. Alberto is going to score. That's going to tie the game in the ninth inning for Galveston. It's a huge fat sac fly. I didn't realize that. And they're threatening here with first and third and two outs, but they can't get it done. So we're going to the bottom of the ninth, tied 4-4. But a huge sacrifice fly by Dan Dark to tie this game up in the ninth. Last chance for the Herons, down by 5 going into the ninth, bottom of the ninth. At Farrow, solo home run, gets one back, so 7-3 now. Bases loaded, nobody out for the Seals, trying to bury the Mobsters here in the bottom of the eighth. And that's a final in Huron. Louisville wins 7-3 to tie the series up 1-1. Meanwhile, San Diego does get a big hit. Glenn Marks drives in two more runs. A record in the Fort Collins Washington game. We forgot to check that last game. We'll check that after this. San Diego adds another 10-1 now, still threatening with two down. Meanwhile, last out for Fort Collins here. Down 7-3, man on base. Base is clearing single for Corey Henderson, or two-run single, excuse me. Washington wins the game, so they tie the series up 1-1. And San Diego's, it's a matter of time here. They're going to win this game. So we're going to have three series tied 1-1. Meanwhile, Montreal and Galveston still tied 4-4 in the top of the 11th now. So Galveston definitely wants to win this game. Montreal trying to take a dominant 2-0 series lead. It's the final for San Diego. And they get the win. Man on first for the machine. Moves to second on a wild pitch. Jorge Cotto walks, so first intentionally. And a ground out by Paul Francis is going to end the inning. So that's going to bring up the top of the 12th. Eduardo Alberto solo home run, top of the 13th, gives Galveston the 5-4 lead, and we're on to the bottom of the 13th now. Let's see if that is enough. Leadoff runners on. Jason Plath singles. So Montreal not going quietly, but it's over just like that. A two-run homer. Montreal walks it off with a two-run homer. Ruben Cruz with the heroics. So Galveston taking the lead in the top of the 13th, but Montreal didn't blink an eye. Two-run homer wins the game, and they take a 2-0 series lead here in the wild card. What a monster hit for Ruben Cruz of the Machine. And we'll just check some things out here real quick. I know we had some injuries, some records go down. Let's look at some box scores. Jamie Lindahl ties the Ice Conference playoff record with doubles with three. So Lindahl had three doubles in the game. Let's see what else. We had some injuries, right? We got to check these things out. Washington, anything serious? Morales was a minimal injury. Nothing bad. All right. I feel like there's another injury. I forget who it was, though. There was a record in game one, too, right? Let's take a look. Zachary Fast sets the Ice Conference playoff game record with two triples. Angel Morales was injured. Bobby Ross was injured, but we just saw both of those were not serious. So, all right, we'll finish today. Didn't save after game one, so we will do that real quick. And here we go. Realizing I didn't highlight any of the pictures for these matchups, but that's okay. I'm sure you guys know all about your teams. You don't need me to tell you. We'll play two more games, and if necessary, game fives will be played later tonight after I get confirmation from the GMs, and we'll probably pick up with the next round tomorrow at this point. 2 on, nobody out for the Gremlins in the bottom of the first. Trying to get back into this series, down 2-0 to the Machine. Everybody else tied up 1-1, so really big game threes all around here. I guess that's kind of a cliche. All playoff games are big, right? So Javier Jame leaves the game with an injury for Washington. Let's hope it's not serious. It's going to be day to day, but he's not pitching in the rest of this game. Guess I didn't correctly set the San Diego Milwaukee game. We're going to have a little later start there. Washington on the board first. Carlos Lozano, two-run home run. So the Washington Generals offense continues to click here. And meanwhile, Huron takes the 1-0 lead on the Brian Gregory double. The defensive catcher has driven in a few runs this postseason. Vickers scores on that one, so 1-0 there. couple hits down in the Montreal Galveston game, but no one's able to drive in a run yet. So still 0-0 going to the bottom of the third. Galveston, two-run homer or three-run homer by Jeff Brown there. Offensive stud. That's going to give them a 3-0 lead here in the third. Meanwhile, Pat Farrow with a solo home run, giving Huron another run, makes that 2-0. Chris Armas hits a sac fly for Washington. That extends their lead to 3-0. And they've got the bases loaded with 2 outs. Let's see if they can add to that here. They can't, but 3-0 going to the top of the fourth. Meanwhile, the San Diego Milwaukee game is now underway. Second and third, nobody out for the Seals. Bases loaded, nobody out for the Seals. They get one on a Corey Henderson sac fly. But really, Milwaukee gets out of that with minimal damage. 1-0 as we go to the bottom of the second. Jason Kohler with a double. He's going to drive in Newton and Cox. It's going to make it 5-0. And then Albert Pregene with a double, making it 6-0. So Washington's offense continuing to just pound the Fort Collins pitching here, which is pretty surprising. Fort Collins had a really, really great pitching staff throughout the regular season, but they've struggled a bit with the Washington offense. Second and third, nobody out for Fort Collins, trying to chip away here. Meanwhile, Bill Bryce doubles, driving in Wilson. It's going to make it 2-0 San Diego. And then a two-run double by Rich Matkin makes it 6-2 as Fort Collins cuts into that Washington lead. 3-0 now in the San Diego game, and 5-0 as a runner scores on a wild pitch, and then Glenn Marks hits a two-run double. Meanwhile, Louisville on the board with a Juan Pacheco double, driving in Walker, so that cuts that lead in half. That game's already in the seventh inning. It's just absolutely flying by. First and third, one out for San Diego, trying to add more here and really put this game away against Milwaukee. And they do. Corey Henderson triples, driving in Marks and Ganoza. Henderson's having a great series. Meanwhile, David Grief hits a single, so that makes it 8-0 in the third. As we know, that's not a safe lead, but it's, you feel pretty good if you have 8 runs here already. Just one hit for Milwaukee through the first 2 innings and 3 errors, which is not helping their cause. Great pitching matchup so far. Eric Ryan's gone 7 shutout innings for Galveston, 7 strikeouts. Mark Morales, 7 innings, just a 1 run, 11 strikeouts for Morales. I'm surprised that hasn't popped up on the scoring updates here. I feel like usually those kind of performances do. Meanwhile, 10-0 as 2 more runs on a Jim Green homer for the Seals. Brandon Geary also pitching pretty well, unfortunately in a loss right now, just 2 runs through 7 innings. Record in Louisville. We'll have to see what that's about. Typical that the game that started late by accident also is high offensive scoring, so it's going to run even longer. All right, 4-0 now as Greg Goldstein doubles, driving in Cloherty. So Goldstein having a pretty nice game here. 4-0 now. Galveston up on the machine. Bases loaded, one out, trying to add more. Montreal gets out without further damage, though, so on to the ninth inning. Last chance for the machine. Meanwhile, bottom of the ninth, last chance for Louisville down 2-1 against the Herons. Let's see if they can do anything. Carlos Gazano doubled to drive in two more for Washington, extending that lead to 8-2 in the seventh. Last out for the machine. Last out for the Rivermen. And they're both final at the exact same time. So Huron taking the 2-1 series lead in Galveston, getting one back now. Eric Ryan pitching a five-hit shutout complete game, nine strikeouts. Mark Morales went 7.2 innings, 12 strikeouts, both outstanding pitching performances. So Montreal leads that series 2-1. Huron leads that series. Washington up 8-2 here with just three outs remaining for Fort Collins. So they are possibly on the way to a 3-1 series lead. Excuse me, 2-1 series lead. And unless San Diego really collapses here, they will also have the series lead, but we'll let this one play out and see what happens. Top of the ninth in Washington. Another run for San Diego, 11-0. Clark Heine drives in Jim Green. And that's the final. Washington takes game three, 8-2. So again, they take that series lead going into game four. And I'm going to boost this game just a little bit due to the late start and the score. See if we can get to game fours here. Not to be overshadowed by the other great pitching performances, but Joe Butts now through 7 innings of shutout baseball, 5 strikeouts. Another pitching performance to highlight here. I believe Joe Butts is a sophomore, his second season in the league, if I'm correct. Mike Asensio leaves the game with an injury for Milwaukee, so we will check on that. Might as well check on that right now since the score is out of reach. Mike Asensio out for 5 weeks, so he is done for the postseason most likely for Milwaukee if they do happen to survive here. Two runs for Milwaukee in the bottom of the ninth to avoid the shutout. Zerwal Jecha hits a two-run homer, so that makes it 11-2. But this is all but a technicality at this point. That'll do it. 11-2. The Seals take game three. That's going to bring us on to game four. Elimination game for four teams. So let's see who survives. No sweeps, though. Everybody has put up a fight here. All right, here we go with game fours. Like as we approach game fours here, Washington is the only home team trying to close out the series. If Huron or San Diego wants to close this thing out, they're going to have to do it here on the road. But they will be returning home for game five. Meanwhile, if Washington doesn't close it out, they have to go on the road for game five, so they're hoping to end it here. Montreal also would look to end this on the road. And 1-0 lead for the machine. Vinny Penelver drives in Cruz with a double, and then Jason Kohler doubles to drive in Cox. Kohler's having a great series for Washington. Chris Arma singles driving in Kohler, so 2-0 in the first. The Washington War Machine continues to chug along. I swear to God, I reset the times for the San Diego Milwaukee game. I don't know why it's saying 7:35 again. Maybe I messed up. I feel like Milwaukee's games ran later every single sim this season. I don't know what the deal with that is, but it feels like they were always like a 30-minute later start or something. Tied up, Fort Collins ties it. Rich Matkin doubles, driving Torgensen, and then Pete Kellogg singles, driving in Matkin. So 2-2 in that game. Fort Collins still threatening here with two guys on base, two down though. 6 hits through 2 innings for Fort Collins. Louisville on the board first. Jose Guevara hits a sac fly, driving in Garnica. So 1-0 for the Rivermen of the third. Meanwhile, Paul Tizard, solo home run, gets Montreal another run, and that gives them the 2-0 lead in the fourth. Fort Collins takes the 3-2 lead on a Jamie Lindahl solo homer. Lindahl, only 23 years old. He looks like a future stud here in the league. Mike Hattie with the leadoff triple for Milwaukee. Hey, but Nick Schneider is able to strand him there and get 3 outs, so Milwaukee doesn't score. It's going to be scoreless going to the third. A lot of low-scoring games here in Game 4. Pitchers are doing their jobs here so far. 2-1, nobody out for Fort Collins, threatening to add to their lead. But they don't get it done, so 3-2 going to the bottom of the fifth. Meanwhile, Huron ties the game up on a Steve Cole double. It's going to make it 1-1 in the sixth, and Mike Wilson triples to drive in Grieve, and that's going to make it 1-0 as San Diego takes the lead here in the third. Corey Goodman reaching on an error, and that's going to score Hernandez. So Milwaukee ties the game up 1-1, going to the top of the fourth. Pete Kellogg with a solo home run, adding an insurance run for Fort Collins, making it 4-2. Ricky Rodriguez with a solo home run. So Huron taking the 2-1 lead in the seventh inning. That's going to put the pressure on Louisville here with 9 outs remaining in their season. Adam Schmidt doubles, driving in Zecha, and then Ken O'Dwyer doubles as well. So Milwaukee extending the lead to 3-1 early in this game. Neil Layton adds another one, so 4-1. Still 2 on and nobody out from Milwaukee. Stringing together a bunch of hits here. Louisville goes quietly in the seventh, so on to the top of the eighth. Meanwhile, Galveston down to their final 5 outs, being shut out by the machine right now, 2-0. Milwaukee adds on two more with a Corey Goodman double. And 3 outs left for the Gremlins. Montreal is going to have one more chance to add some insurance, but this might be the end of the run for Galveston this season. Huron adds an insurance run, 3-1 with a Ricky Rodriguez single. Galveston strands two runners for Montreal here, so they're going to have, again, 3 outs remaining, but they may keep it at 2-0. See if they can do anything here. Meanwhile, Louisville down to their last 4 outs as they are going quickly in the eighth. One down for Galveston, two down. Final out of their season. And that'll do it. The Montreal Machine and Tim advance to the Divisional Championship Series, where I don't know who they'll face off, but we'll check that out here in a second. Meanwhile, 2 outs remaining for the Rivermen. The defending champs on the ropes against Huron. Man on first. Reverio reaches on an error. Oh, this is Huron up. Excuse me. He's trying to add insurance. And now to the bottom of the ninth. So Louisville down to their final 3 outs, down 3-1. They need two to tie. Meanwhile, Washington down 4-3. They add one run on a Jason Kohler double. Fred Cox scores. Man on second with 1 out here. Jose Hernandez adds an insurance run from Milwaukee, extending the lead. Two down for the Rivermen. Last chance. Triple by David Walter, so still alive. Let's see if they can do anything. Man on third for Washington as well. That'll do it. Huron takes the win and takes the series 3-1, so they will advance. The Rivermen are out. The defending champions are out, so we won't have back-to-back champs this season. Meanwhile, 3 outs left for Washington to prevent a game 5. Fort Collins doing what they need to do to stay alive in this series so far. And Milwaukee just holding a pretty firm lead over the Seals to also try to tie that series up. And here we go. Last 3 outs for the Generals here in game 4. Record in Fort Collins. Todd Velo walks, driving in, or singles, driving in a run, chipping one away for San Diego. It's a man on first for Washington to lead things off. Steve McKenzie grounds out. It's going to bring up pinch hitter Herring. And he lines out quickly, so Newton's up. That will do it. So Fort Collins hangs on for the narrow win, 4-3, ties the series up 2-2, and they're going to go back to Fort Collins for Game 5. So that's a big win for the Roosters. And our final game here, Seals are down to their final 5 outs of trying to close the series out, or we'll have a Game 5 in San Diego. Last 3 outs here for the Seals. They go in order. So Milwaukee takes Game 4, 7-2 to tie that series up. We're gonna have 2 Game 5s. I'm gonna put out a file here, and we will probably finish these up late tonight. Congratulations to Huron. Congratulations to um, Montreal, and I'll drop a file here in just a minute.